at this point we really need to, revamp the labor law.
Yeah,
because
I think we said this the last time.
Yes, during the recruitment series. And the reason why I'm saying this is because the labor law states that if you don't confirm the person upon the end of that person's probation period, automatically the person becomes confirmed.
So I think I kind of agree with that. If you don't communicate, like you place someone on probation, for example, for 6 months, then after the 6 months you don't communicate, you don't tell them that okay, this is it. This is the outcome. I would just like it's normal for you to assume that okay, this is what they want me, they've accepted me.
I agree. But unfortunately, so many people are not practicing this. So it begs the question, do people really make reference to the labor law when they want to set up like principles and policies within their workspace? Welcome to another episode on the Expat Explorer, where we discuss the facts, the myth, and everything in between. My name is Midday.
And my name is Aisha.
So today, we're going to be discussing something different. But before we start, we just want to make sure that you've done the right thing. We want to make sure that you've watched the previous episodes that we dropped on the recruitment series. Right, we discussed so many details, so many hot details on the recruitment practice in Nigeria. So we would like you to actually go back and watch.
Go back, run back, fly back, disappear back.
Honestly, go back in time and watch those episodes.
So what's going on today, Bidi? What do we have today?
So today we're going to be discussing the exit management according to the labor law. Our beloved Nigerian labor law. So we're going to be mentioning at least 5 things the Nigerian labor law says about exit management in the workspace.
Okay. That's interesting. Sounds very interesting. I'm interested. I would like to know why. Give me the gist.
Okay, so the first thing I would like to address is the probation. Right. Under the probation, we have the Nigerian clause stating that, of course, this is the amended or the repealed version of the labor law. It states that we should not extend the probationary period of anybody that's been in our employment. So what that simply means is, if you have an employee within your workspace, you cannot place the person on a 6-month probation, and then after the expiration of that probationary period, you now decide to extend it due to non-performance or due to any reason whatsoever.
So what if you want to, for example, you employ a new employee and they're placed on, like, let's say 3 months probation, for example. Then after that 3 months, you see that the person is not doing as much as you want them to, but you just want to give them like more opportunity. Then you say, okay, let's extend it by 1 month and see how they perform in that 1 month. So according to the Nigerian labor law, that's not acceptable.
To be exactly.
Wow.
So
that's interesting.
Yes. So what legal experts are saying now is that give your employees 6 months. 6-month probation period. That will give you enough time, ample time, to be able to assess the person's performance on the job. Rather than actually placing the person on a short-term probation period that would not enable you to fully understand the competencies or fully assess the competencies of your employee.
So I think I kind of agree with it. If somebody stays in the company for 6 months and you're not able to determine whether that person is like good at the job or they are performing well, good on the job, like, it's just better to just let them go, basically.
Okay, so but again, another thing that needs to be done, is that before the expiration of your probation period, the recruiter needs to engage you based off your exit notice, just in case you are not going to be successful at the end of your probation period. So the recruiter has to put, the HR manager has to bear in mind the notice period required upon termination of contract, and then engage you from that moment to let you know whether or not they'll be renewing or they'll be extending a confirmation letter to you. So otherwise, an employer has to track your probation period to ensure that they meet up with the labor law. Yes, the labor law notice period upon exit, right?
But don't you think like is once you're on probation, it's by the end of your probation, it's either up or down. It's either you're going or you're staying. Yes. So does that like come to terms like okay, you don't need to like it's expected like okay, I might stay, I might go because basically that's just you're on probation. Exactly. So you can be asked to leave or you can be extended a confirmation. So does that like matter that you have to now give them like 1 month notice like oh it's like a confirmed employee? Is that yes. I'm struggling to understand that.
I get you because now I think at this point we really need to revamp the labor law.
Yeah, I think we said this the last time.
Yes, during the recruitment series. And the reason why I'm saying this is because the labor law states that if you don't confirm the person upon the end of that person's probation period, automatically the person becomes confirmed. After the end of that probation period. It contradicts what is required in terms of termination because if you're supposed to give someone a probation period of 6 months, you're not giving that employer that opportunity to fully exhaust the 6 months if at the end of that 6 months you would automatically confirm the person or the labor law automatically confirms the person into employment. Right after that probation period has elapsed.
Okay, I thought like what the labor law is speaking to is if at the end of that 6 months, if you don't communicate with the employee, like or you don't communicate with that, or they are going or they are confirmed, that's when there is like automatic confirmation.
Yes.
Okay, well, I think I kind of agree with that. If you don't communicate, like you place someone on probation, for example, for 6 months, then after the 6 months, you don't communicate, you don't tell them that okay, this is it. This is the outcome. I would just like it's normal for you to assume that okay, this is what they want. They want me. They've accepted me because if you don't want me, you would have said something at the end of that. I
agree, but unfortunately, so many people are not practicing this. So it begs the question: do people really make reference to the labor law when they want to set up like principles and policies within their workspace?
I seriously doubt that. I do doubt that. Okay.
Yes, I think the second part of what the labor law says about exit management has to do with the terms of termination. I think the tenure, the notice period of termination. That's because the employer, either party in an employment relationship, has the right to terminate.
Of course,
right. However, the termination clause in the labor law requires that if you've spent 3 months within an employment, you give like 1 day notice.
Okay, on both parties.
Both parties.
Okay.
Right. So this is based off the labor law.
Okay.
But employers they have the right to define the notice period required at the point of exiting the relationship or terminating the contract.
Okay.
Right. So another thing that it states is that if you've stayed in employment for up to 3 months but less than 2 years, right, you have to give 1 week notice.
Okay.
Right. And it is at that point that you have to start writing
a
letter stating that you are exiting or you are terminating the contract.
Okay.
The labor law states that it is only at the point of spending more than 3 months that you can now tender a resignation letter, which is contrary to the practice in other organizations, right? In most organizations, even if you spent 1 hour, you terminate in writing. It has to be communicated from both ends, right? And then it also states that if you spent up to 5 years, you give 1 month notice.
Okay.
Right. In my experience, I've had organizations that even require up to 3 months notice.
Wow.
Right? So in that case, it begs the question: is the labor law really in tune with what is happening? Right? It has to. The labor law just needs to give that caveat.
Yeah, and I think it's both ways. Like a lot of times, employees just leave. There are some times that employees just like, oh, this is my last day, or like my last day is like so day, and they leave. I've had experiences like that. Like, they just leave you hanging and also. And also, organizations as well. There are sometimes that they like organizations terminate like effective immediately, and I think it's it best to differ like from the contract. Depending on the contract that is signed, like on the contract, it states like terms of termination. Sometimes you can say, okay, you pay in lieu, or you have to give like notice, or you can terminate effectively immediately based on on some factors. So I think it happens both ways. Like sometimes some organizations don't follow the requirements of the termination term, and the employees too don't follow the terms of the termination. But I don't want to sound controversial, but why is that employees always like sue like employers, and when it comes to like termination of like, well, maybe when you don't give like enough notice.
That brings me to the next point.
Okay, let's talk about
the
that.
labor law states that any party to a contract has the right to terminate a contract or to terminate that relationship, that employment relationship. But unfortunately, I feel most of the time, right, given that I've also been in some lawsuits, employment lawsuits, right, the law always tilts towards supporting the employees.
I can kind of
you are like,
I see why.
But I'm also wondering, why is it that employees they always have these expectations, right, of the employer giving a reason for termination.
Yes.
Meanwhile, on the contrary, when you flip the side of the coin, you see
that
the employee is not doing same. They don't want to give any
reason, just for personal reasons.
They terminate for any cause. In fact, nobody tries to press on or try to follow through, right?
Yeah, I actually agree with you. It's actually very true. Like you see, like you want like specific reasons, like, oh, this is why. But I feel like in a structured organization, before termination comes to pass, there must have been like what's the word I'm looking for, like track record of like, okay, maybe somebody is not meeting expectation, when it's not like situations that are very controversial, maybe like issues like maybe sexual harassment or any form or theft or fraud or anything. But for maybe performance based, there must have been like constant communication of like, okay, this is what we noticed. If you haven't been meeting expectation, things must have been done, like maybe you put the employee on PIP or something. But if that has been the precedent and you get terminated, I don't think you should be surprised or be like adamant on getting a reason. But if you just wake up out of the blue and you get terminated without any reason, you assume that you're doing your job well. I can see when you feel slighted, where employees can feel slighted when you are doing your job, no communication has been given to you, like, oh, maybe you are not meeting expectation.
When an employee feels unfairly treated.
Yes. So I can see both sides actually. I can see both sides.
Okay, so interestingly, the fourth issue, right, or the fourth thing that the Nigerian labor law says about termination within the workspace is that wages after an exit period. So we're going to talk about wages after exit, right? Okay. So the labor law states that payments in lieu should be only the parts of the employee, that is the parts whereby the employee receives money, right, exclusive of overtime and other allowances. Wages payable in money shall be paid. Well, the clause is quite ambiguous.
I'm waiting for you to explain so I understand what they are saying.
Okay, so let me go over it again. So another thing that the labor law states, right, is that when you want to pay an employee in lieu of notice, you have to focus on the basic pay and not necessarily the allowance and overtime. So it is supposed to be exclusive of all those details. Yes. And it also says that wages that are payable in money should be paid. Right. So if there are so many things going on, Aisha.
A lot.
So many. I remember that story you told me one day when you came to visit, right?
Yeah.
About your friend that exited the company because she was maltreated by a boss. And she never really got a contract of employment.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
But I just feel, again, I know you would contradict what I'm
like
saying.
we argued for hours on this topic.
Yeah, as much as I feel that she was badly or poorly treated,
yeah,
the best thing to do was that she should have applied what the labor law requires. Because if the employer decides to sue her, she'll be liable to pay for, I don't know if it's
so how do you, like, when there is no written contract, where do you go from there?
If beyond reasonable doubt the courts can tell or you can make a case that this person has been under your employment, you gave the person work tools, you gave there's an agreement, there's a form of employment relationship between you, the courts, you can always argue that this person was your employee. Right?
Yeah, well, when it comes to this conversation, I don't want to start arguing again. I don't want to start arguing again because it's very, I don't know, maybe I'm speaking from like a friend
sentiment.
Yeah, because she's my friend and I understand, like, she complained to me a lot and all, so it was just very chaotic there, like working there. It was just very unfortunate.
It was
toxic. It was very toxic, and she had like spoken up like several times that lay complaints that, okay, please can you do this, oh please can I do this, can this be done, and nothing has been done, no communication has been given. It's just like, okay, just come and do, like, I don't care what you want, I don't care what happens to you or anything. That's not fair. You can't be expecting so much from someone when you're not ready to even give them or treat them like a human. You can't be expecting so much from them. You can't be treating me like I'm not human and expect me to regard you. It's not just, it doesn't just add up.
You know the popular saying of two wrongs don't make a right.
True.
Right?
Yeah. True.
So that the employer is not doing the right thing shouldn't make you as the employee do the wrong thing. So this is me putting it out there. True. That if you're an employee that is going through a lot at a place of employment, right, and you probably did not receive a contract during the time of your commencement of employment, I think when you are leaving, just go to the Nigerian Labour Law and apply what is there. What is there simply says that if you've spent 3 months, give 1 day notice. If you spent 3 months or more than 3 months up to 2 years, give 1 week notice. And if you spent beyond 5 years, you give one month notice. It's as simple as that. Don't try to, box yourself in a corner whereby someone can come and take advantage of you or leverage on you. Yeah, because if you go to court, they'll tell you that negligence is not an excuse.
Not an excuse.
Right?
True,
so
true,
please
true.
take that into.
Yeah, I think I'll take that. I'll take note of that, and that's going to be part of my takeaway. Like, don't always, because the employer is not doing the right thing, doesn't mean
let's always be objective when we're dealing with relationships, right? Well, even if you are not dealing with someone within a workspace, if you are having a deal with somebody, right, you have to be very objective in your contracts. Yes. Right? Be objective with the way you engage and the way you terminate. Don't just terminate because you have one hot or you have a hostile thing against that person. There's a beef or there is something that is not going on well in that relationship. Just be on the right side of the law.
I agree with you.
Finally, the labor law requires, right, before you terminate, these 3 things must apply. Right? So you can only terminate a contract on the basis, as an employer, of course, in an employment relationship with an employee. You can only terminate on these 3 basic things, or these 3 things, right? One is the expiry period of that contract. So of course, when the contract ends, of course, expires, you can either continue the contract or you terminate the contract. So it is covered by the Nigerian Labour Law. Then there's a part where by the death of the worker before the expiry date of the contract. So if you place someone in an employment contract for a period of time and the person dies, right, during that period, you can terminate automatically. Right? By notice in accordance with Section 11 And Section 11 speaks to the notice that I just mentioned.
And the 1 day,
the 1 day
week, 1
when you
month,
spend 3 months, the 1 week when you spent up to 2 years,
yeah,
and then the 1 month when you spent beyond 2 years up to 5 years.
Okay,
right?
Okay.
Yeah, so that's what the labor law says. Anything outside of it, and I understand that the labor law is flexible to accommodate the policies.
Okay.
Yes.
That was going to be my next question.
Yes.
Where does that leave like the company's decision? Like, because some companies like have policies of like, okay, this is our notice period, and where does the labor, like if the labor law is saying one day, 1 week, 1 month, the company also has their policy that is also included in their contract. Where does that leave that? Like the notice period could be 2 weeks, some could be 1 month, some could be 3 weeks, 3 months. I think you mentioned some companies that have 3 months.
Yeah,
that's a lot.
No. So the good part, right, is that the law also identifies things like the customary practice.
Okay.
Right. Just like in religion, there's the parts where, okay, don't let me get into those details. That may be controversial, right? So, but let me just also mention that the court recognizes the customary practice,
okay,
right, in employment, where a farmer, just those traditional level of employment, where people have petty trades, and then they just bring someone to stand in as sales girl, so in such cases I think the law actually accommodates a couple of things. You sign a contract on that basis, right, to identify certain things, right? So it is not stiff, right? It's not stiff. It's a bit flexible on that part, but I just also want to ensure that people are not crossing the line. Crossing the line in the sense that you don't just fire. I've heard, even outside of Nigeria, I've seen situations whereby renowned tech companies, one of the big Forbes, the billionaires in the tech world, right? Which I know there's one particular one that both of us know is always known for his controversial, statements and all of it. Right? And some of the things, the extreme things he does.
Yes,
right?
I agree with you.
Yeah,
I think everybody, people can kind of
know the person. Exactly.
We're not going to name anyone.
We're not naming. Right? So, but I've heard of him firing people on the spot. Like you are having a video call and you did not probably unmute your mic, you're fired. Like
that's just sad.
You're fired. In fact, there have been several what they call these things, clips on social media. Clips on social media, all this comic stuff of people referencing where he said you are fired on a video call. It was even worse during COVID, right? And there's so many things happening even outside of Nigeria. But I think whilst you have the authority or you have that power because you are the one paying the person's salary, you cannot dehumanize people by just terminating their contracts. So we've come to the end of today's episode where we discuss the exit management in the Nigerian context, right? According to the Nigerian Labour Law, we gave 5 tips, and I believe Aisha, you have some things that you learned today.
Yes, it's true. So the key thing that I'm taking away is as employers, follow the due process. If a contract states that you give an employee 2 weeks notice, ensure you give them when it's not related to like offenses that you can terminate on immediately with immediate effect, like theft, fraud, and what have you. Then for employees as well, follow your contract. If your contract states give 2 weeks notice, give that 2 weeks notice. Notice period are there for a reason. So let's follow the due process. So that's my key takeaway. And as always, from one explorer to another, be bold,
be global,
and be you.
Purr.